So, for the regular listeners of our podcast and people who haven't yet figured out, Thinking on Thinking is now a video podcast. So, if you haven't seen the video version, you can see it on Spotify and you can see it on YouTube.
Yes.
Okay, so getting into today's conversation. So, today, what we are doing is we are looking at a hardware tech companies investor presentation they are actively raising. And so, this is quite interesting for us because we will be able to look at a presentation that is live right now and see how that can be improved.
There is a key question I forgot to ask, which is whether this deck would generally be presented or it would be a deck that they would be emailing out to people. I think, judging by the fact that they didn't ask to present it or kind of like push that at all, I'm assuming this is a deck that they are emailing out to people.
Then I guess like that is a key question. If you are making an artifact, it's useful to think about how will this be received. So am I like with it? Is this an assistant artifact or is this a standalone artifact?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Okay.
before we go from this first page, I'm just curious, do you have any thoughts about these design choices or this language?
What I think that like sometimes you wanna be either you wanna be super shiny, like you need something to grab the audience, and it's not doing that in the so like either you can grab them informationally or you can grab them like emotionally, but like you need to figure out which one you wanna do and you do that.
And even something like visual highlights might do that, right? Like having something that like grabs your attention. I don't know, like having light blue or having like so like a contrasting color to the blue in some places would pull your eye and kind of pull you in. Fair?
Because
So
like right now it feels like a corporate presentation, but like it doesn't position me. So like it feels serious, but it doesn't sort of anchor me in anything other than this is a sincere presentation. Okay. A thermal
okay.
energy storage solution that makes cooling affordable. That
So
makes sense.
yeah. I think if I was asking that question we asked on I think the Smickle deck, like what do I feel like the takeaway of this slide is, I think this is establishing credibility, right? Here's other logos that we would likely recognize, and it's saying, hey, I'm borrowing from their credibility because they have talked about us. Does this say more words? Does this, so we already learned this is making cooling affordable, and now we're learning
It's a thermal
that,
energy storage solution.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. So like I would say that like they probably need a little more on this page because like that makes schooling affordable means that like they're only adding the first half of that phrase, a thermal energy storage solution.
yeah.
On this page, that's what I'm gaining informationally. And I feel like because investor decks are so high stakes in most cases, it's very valuable to quickly communicate more than one thing. Again, like I feel like sometimes when people think more, they think about like, maybe I should add more information, but it's not always that. But you should think about, okay, what is each piece of information doing here? So, like, let's say 50% of this page is right now dedicated to a lot of these logos, and you could decrease that space and it would still deliver the same promise because, like, if these logos are like, trustworthy, it just makes sense regardless, right? Like even if it is 25% size or something like that. And then that would also give you more space to talk about the solution because first I need to understand what you do before I ask myself, are these people trustable?
Yeah, that's very fair. Yeah, you could easily make these like take up a quarter of the room or the half the room they do today. And then that would give you space to kind of give a breakdown on like what is this? Like, right? You could give the next three subpoints. Um,
Because I think at this point you would want to establish the world first, right? Like this is the point of before in the story, right? So like giving people an idea of this is where the state of the world is right now, or this is the problem that we are changing. Because I don't know how many um I don't know how many investors will have context or anchoring in the idea that like cooling needs to be affordable or there
yeah.
is a lack of affordability in this thing. They're not using buzzwords, but they're also not like telling their own specific story.
And I think to even wrap your head around that, like energy storage is the solution, means that you've understood a little bit of what the problem is.
Hmm.
And I think you're right that we haven't understood the problem at this point in the conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. I still don't understand the problem. you know, like I guess yeah. So there's these are I guess now these are telling me the different places that people need cooling, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then this is helping me understand that there is a reason why this money is needed, and there's a pipeline of product development that includes this specific technology, and that specific technology is going to have a big impact on the business. Or maybe this is a collection of technologies that would result in an advanced version of this product that would have this.
Oh, I think it is more that like they are promising 30% increased profitability for businesses
Oh, you're
that
probably
use
right.
cooling.
So this is the thing we've already created. And we're saying that the thing we've created will increase the profitability for our clients by 30%.
So
Profitability
I
is a
am
weird word. Oh, because the clients are the people providing cooling solutions, not the actual end people using the cooling solution.
I'm
That's what
actually
I have
not
to,
sure.
because
Yeah, so
profitability is
like
only,
now
yeah, go ahead.
now I'm like just a little bit worried about maybe we don't know if like the people who are reading this deck they are already very advanced in terms of their understanding of the space. So like if they are sending decks to people who are already working in like clean energy or stuff like that, maybe they do have all of those numbers, yeah, at the top of their head. I'm not too sure though, because like still I would want to have a problem statement. Like, what is the problem that you're trying to solve?
Yeah.
Like, can you tell what are they trying to do? Not in words that they have used.
And you're saying just based on my knowledge from this deck or including the knowledge?
Yeah, no, not from what we know of them.
I guess so. When we started off, I was thinking kind of like cooling affordable, especially the like to me makes me think about like, oh, that the world is getting hotter. And so we have this need to like, air condition our climates. But then when I started to see this, I was like, okay, I'm not really sure what side that is. And then here I'm like, oh, this is much more clearly uh B2B applications. And then when I see this, I'm like, so maybe your client base is actually people who are providing cooling solutions for these kinds of industries already. So it feels to me now that this product is for people who already have a client base who them for cooling, and it's a product for suppliers of cooling solutions.
Hmm.
If that is true, that's not what I used to think they did. I used to think they actually had products that like people could buy, even like end consumers could use for like milk and stuff, but I could be wrong. And now we're gonna see as we
So
go
it
through
is
this
very
deck.
interesting because I'm obviously friends with Soumya, but I'm also friends with Shrey, who I connected the two of them and they are now collaborating together. And like Shrey has also talked to me about it, but I don't know what they do.
Yeah,
And I still like 3 pages in the deck and I still don't know what their product is.
like
What
I
their
knew it
product is
was
or what their
in
solution
cooling
is. Yeah,
from
that's
all
what
my
I
men,
also know.
and I still know it's in cooling.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that like just a singular page before like before after the first page would be enough to do that. I feel like.
Yeah, because
Right? Like,
even when
oh,
I've
this
seen
is
other, oh, go ahead. Okay, well, even when I've seen other really high capital industry decks, like I've seen some space decks for a while. I'm part of this syndicate on AngelList where I've been getting a lot of like space related technology. And yeah, I mean, they always have a slide establishing the problem. And I think even on the other extreme, when I've seen kind of ones that are for, like wide scale impact on like, hundreds of thousands of people, and you're trying to do these kind of like larger interventions, again, you'll have like a slide establishing the problem. And I think maybe fine, this is maybe so far in between where it's kind of like this is a very like niche market that maybe there is a lot of understanding already from the people who would be investing and the people who are seeing this tech.
it's
But
not a
still,
niche market if it's a $500 billion.
That's also
opportunity,
very fair.
right? And so
Yeah.
that's also another thing, right? Like temperature control and clean energy. So what they are saying is that temperature control and clean energy in applications in fisheries and agriculture, defense, space cooling, and healthcare, just those four actually make up $500 billion, which means that like cooling has more usage. I know that cooling has more usage than this,
Yeah.
right? Like commercial cooling, industrial cooling, all of that, like all of those things also exist, which means the market size is probably much bigger than that. But then I don't know what is the market because I don't know what is the problem.
You know what feels so interesting to me is I think this slide and this slide, I think, are both still about establishing credibility,
They are, yeah.
right? Like we're back to having more logos. We're having these things of why should you listen to us? We've done
Which is,
work.
yeah, which is
Interesting.
great, right? Like they have done a lot of work. Clearly, 8 plus patented products is not a small deal at all. Like clearly, they've done a lot of research in a country where not a lot of research happens
Yeah.
commercially, right? Like we just build, like we just utilize other people's knowledge base and build on top of that. We don't really generate our own knowledge usually.
This is the difference, though, between when you're expecting your viewer to have to listen or at least have to look at it versus your viewer choosing to look at it, right? So when you're expecting that the person is going to like look at it because they need to, you're going to spend more time in the initial slides establishing credibility because you're trying to get them to not, you're trying to be like, this is why you should pay attention to me of the like 200 other ones that you're going to look at. Whereas I
Mm.
think typically in your investor decks, the danger is that either the person didn't open it at all, and then once they've opened it, it's that they're just going to put it down, right? So it's much
Mm.
more about establishing this is like, and then at the point they've opened it, you already have some amount of credibility with them. Otherwise, they never opened the deck to begin with. So it's more a question of not losing that kind of credibility or curiousness or interest that brought them in and giving them more hooks that they can grab onto and like keep taking that forward versus it kind of being like, I'm trying to stand out amongst this crowd arena of things you're considering. So I would not be surprised if previously they had been pitching for a lot more like grants and kinds of things, and that's what has given them this kind of opening feeling versus kind of being more of a typical investor deck.
That is very interesting. That would make a lot of sense.
Because then
But
you'd also have supporting materials that would be like, oh, this is like, our 2 sentence version of our product and like, 500 words of how we solve the problem. Um,
I also think that like a lot of times one can run into the problem of here is a piece of information, here's a piece of information, here's a piece of information, instead of being like, there's a certain story that I want to tell you.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I think the danger in that is you're letting the person construct the story in their mind. This was a big problem I had with our own website actually early on. And I remember we had many conversations about this. But I was like, I wanted to have a journey through our website. And I think early
Hmm.
days, there just wasn't enough content to make that worth it. But then as we kind of got more developed, it was like, yeah, if someone comes into our homepage, well, what are they going to do next? Well, they're curious about something about us. So how do we give them something that's going to indulge that curiosity and ideally give them something else that then they can start hooking onto and satisfying that need or urge or emotion? And I think that's the thing that I feel like, yeah, is just we're having a little bit too much of like these are different pieces of information and I'm supposed to construct the story for myself.
Hmm.
Yeah. Should I come to the next?
Yeah.
We're now into spring days, so the sun is upon me. Wow, we're still establishing credibility and with an image that I have no idea what this is.
I agree.
What could this be? I mean, these are solar panels, and this maybe is something to do with cooling. Maybe these are cooling the solar panels.
Maybe this is their solution. I agree.
It's interesting there's no people in the image, which makes me like feel like they're highlighting that there's not as much labor requirements.
More like I am curious why this is there. I can't think of why. Because
Yeah,
again, like it just says that like advanced storage thermal da, 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 and this person is World Bank. And it's like, who are they at World Bank? Is this an employee of World Bank? Is this somebody who was an intern at World Bank? I don't know. And maybe their audience knows you are searching.
Is an environmental engineer, or is an environmental engineer. Been there for many, many years. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
But
can
like
zoom
I
in if you
would,
can't see.
no,
Anyway,
I
whatever.
can see. Yeah, I would definitely think about like why is this here? And I can't think of a reason why. This is the kind of slide that I would maybe put at like 20th slide or something. Definitely not the fourth slide.
Well, it's right. Like, I feel if I was just reading this deck, I would not have read slower than this speed. Wow. Here we actually are on a problem, right? Like, it was just, all those slides felt like they were designed to be scrolled through, which is questionable to me. So, what am I understanding? Cooling costs make up 24% of total cold chain expenses. Advanced thermal material, which is the thing we think they've made, is among the most effective and affordable thermal energy storage solutions. These words are slightly different, which makes me think they're talking about different things. Like, right?
Huh.
The cooling cost and the thermal a thermal energy solution is not going to solve all of my cooling cost. It'll be part of solving my cooling cost. So,
Yeah.
and you're saying that this material helps for that part of the cooling cost. So then, but what part of cooling cost, right? Like, can thermal energy solution tackle 90% of my cooling cost, or is it only 60% of my cooling cost because I still got to
Or is
cool
it
it?
10%
Yeah,
of the cooling cost?
yeah. I'm objecting to this being the problem statement we're getting at this point because it just feels like we're not defining the problem enough for understanding where we're trying to go.
I feel like this is an assumption of like 80% shared context. But with most investors, you will have barely 5% shared context. This is somebody like this problem statement and this page assumes that like people know what is cooling cost, what is a cold chain expense, what does 24% of it looks like, what are the components, and where would like, something like energy storage solution fit? What does it probably even mean to have thermal energy storage? Because like if you say is among the most effective and affordable, then you're also like framing it as if there are other solutions around.
Yeah, interesting. I think if I was trying to build this story, I would take these industries and
Hmm.
I would show how they talk about cooling today. Like, that would be my graphic. And I would be like, for fishing, cooling is 80% of, I don't know, margin or something. Like, I would figure out some way of like showing visually like where it impacts their business. And then being able to show that what part of that would be addressable. Like, I'm imagining some sort of pie chart with a call out, right? Like, and so then I'd be able to show what part of that is addressable with my thermal energy material. I also really would need to define advanced thermal energy material before using it so casually. Like, what is
Yeah,
this? You know?
I agree.
Yeah.
Which means is so like I also feel like the problem page like that needs to be just the problem statement page.
Mm.
Right, because like here I also feel like they are missing out on a lot of other parts of the problem, like global warming. Theirs is a clean energy solution, but like you need to set up the context for that. So it's not just that there is effective and theirs is effective and affordable solution, but it's also a clean energy solution which matters,
So
right?
what I feel like you're getting to there is, and this is, yeah, a feedback that I've given to like companies in the past. But help me understand, why is this the right time for this, and why are you guys the right team for this? And I think that, yeah, the macro forces are really what contribute to why is it the right time, and then the like micro forces, if you will, which is like you and your personal context and your classmate, excuse me, your colleagues and their personal context. How have those aligned for you guys to be the people to address this?
Because then
Yeah.
that statement of we have like 8+ patented products, then it really answers the question of why us very well.
Yep. Yep. Here we are. So now we learn what it is. It's a battery? What? It's a battery.
I think so.
Maybe anything that's a energy storage is a battery.
Yeah, but like energy storage is battery, but like what is thermal? You're storing heat and not electricity, maybe?
60% of the global CO2 offset. Is okay because we're storing energy that would otherwise have to be generated again. So therefore, it's reducing how much CO2 would have been created in order to like. So if let's say that I like my
I
house.
feel like, no, I feel like that is a reach.
I'm
Whatever you say is a reach. I would 100%, like I said in the previous one also, it would be really awesome if they actually set up the fact that this is a clean energy solution much above. I feel like this is so similar to what we were thinking about with cranberry. That like you have a good product. Like you clearly are, like, you have something good in your hands. You already know how to do that.
yeah.
Right? Like you've done the hard part. Like this is the easy part. Learning how to talk about it is the easy part.
Yeah. Well, in their case, I feel like they were highlighting the problem, but I didn't understand why they were the solution or how they were the solution, right? And I think here it's almost like they're highlighting the solution space and kind of where they fall in it, but not so much highlighting like why does that solution space exist? The example I think we've talked about on the podcast a long time ago, but I was giving you the company that my brother-in-law used to work for, Snowflake. And Snowflake is this solution that helps you back up between clouds at its core, right? Like that's what Snowflake does. And it's a solution that exists because of the situation, the circumstances of that market, right? Like people want to be on Azure, they want to be on AWS, but they're also nervous. So they want to be able to have redundancy. Like, what if something goes down? What if I want to change later,
Hmm.
right? Like, so because of the way that market has developed and because it has this, duopoly or whatever, right, there is this ability for you to like invest heavily into each ecosystem and be able to help your customers navigate kind of the best features of both ecosystems.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as like there's these cross-platform development systems that you can use to build on Android and iOS. Those exist
Hmm.
because there's a platform play the existence that is, there's iOS and there's Android. There's two platforms, and so people can build a business about saying we're going to get the most features we can from both of them into our cross-platform solution. And I just feel like those things are existing because there's a opportunity in the market, not because there's an inherent need that like they're not solving a core problem. They're solving a problem that's existing because of the solutions today. And that's what I don't understand here. Is this a problem that's a core problem, right? Or is this a problem that's
Yeah.
existent because of the solutions that are existing today? And therefore you have to be it will work for a period, right? It maybe works for 5 years or 10 years, but if there's a technology like leap in cooling, will just remove the need to have an energy storage solution at all. Like, is that just a quirk because of how cooling has historically operated? And I don't know, maybe like heat pumps will eliminate the need
Hmm.
to like have energy storage solution because they just move heat back and forth.
You know what is
Yeah.
interesting? Based on what I know of physics, uh, I think this is solving a core problem
Divya
because
has a master's in physics, in case any of our listeners have forgotten.
uh, like a lot of times as you change form, that is where like wastage happens. And a lot of wastage is heat. So, like, if you think about air conditioning, right, it is using electricity, which was generated using heat by burning coal somewhere, right? It's using, so like, there is one conversion from heat to electricity. Then there is another conversion that is happening from electricity to cooling in your house.
Yeah.
But if you could just do energy storage directly from heat, then that would like if it is doing that kind of a thing, then it would like automatically save just by not having to do the conversion. Again, I don't know what the advanced thermal material does, but like I'm just saying that if it reduces the number of jumps that energy has to do, then it is automatically fundamentally better. And like that is one of the quirks of the world that we are in, not the human world, but like just the physical world that we are in. That like entropy increases, almost everything dissipates into heat. So if you can capture some heat, then you are able to actually just on a fundamental level solve something. So I act
Yeah.
again, like I think their solution is very impressive. from like whatever I've heard from like my friend Shrey also, I think the solution is like really impressive. Not that I understand what they do.
It's interesting you say that the way you did, because I think something we talked about on a previous episode is that it's nice to give your viewer, your audience, something that they can read and be like, oh, yeah, I know about that. I agree with that. And so I think, right, like referencing something like that, right, that like maybe you're showing how, like maybe this slide was a contrasting slide. And so one, it's showing how many transformations occur when heat is normal, or when, like how much energy loss occurs, just because how do you
Yeah.
deal with heating something during the day and cooling it at night, or the other way around, right? Whereas when you have this kind of energy storage solution, how much energy, and then people can look at that and be like, oh yeah, I do remember I learned about conservation of energy when I was very young, right? And it gives you this moment where like, oh yeah, I'm here, right? I'm like, this is me, this is my people, like I feel seen. And I think those are really nice moments if you can create them for your audience.
I would also say that like they are worrying a lot about innovated by experienced professionals and profitability. Like I feel like they're worrying too much about the this is profitable and it is done by reliable people. There are few, like really, really few innovative products in the world. And this seems like an innovative solution. So it would be, it's a shame to not frame it like that. Right? So, like, this is a hard technical problem, and we have solved the hard technical problem, and framing it like that is a very, I would say that's like a winning story.
Yeah. I think I would more show, if you wanted to show this first line, right? You can show that by showing the product development. Like what were the process of which you got here? Because I think a lot of time, like anyone who's doing hard science investment or just understands the hard science process, they understand that there was a whole process of where you guys had different prototypes and there's some things that worked and you learned this and then you got here. And you want to make it clear to me as the investor, at what point in the life cycle am I investing? Is this the point where the prototype exists? Is this the point where the product exists and just need money to go to market? Or where am I? Like, um, and I think
Yeah.
that part of my confusion over here of whether this was saying, is this an advancement that's possible with my money, or is this something that's for the client? Would it could be answered by making it clear kind of where in the life cycle we are.
True. I would also say that, like, if you just like, so about 40% of this is taken by, like, this page is taken by charging, storage, discharging. Everybody understands that cycle, but looking at this graphic, I can't tell where their solution fits in or what is the advantage. And I would like really, really double highlight where is that advantage coming.
Yeah. And yeah, I agree. Because I think here they're trying to say a little bit by giving the statistic, but it's just too
Yeah.
floating, It doesn't, we
I
don't,
would use way more, like, I have rarely felt this in decks, but I would use way more words than they have used till now. Like, I would make this deck like double as technically intensive as it is, and I would like really focus on going deep. Because again, if you're raising from climate tech like investors, they generally tend to be people who like hard tech problems. So like they tend to like that sort of stuff also. Like a person who's like, maybe more interested in investing in the next upcoming TikTok is not going to be the investor who's investing in this, right?
yeah. All right, let's see the value proposition. Okay. Here's that
I don't
60%
know
number
what they
again.
do. I don't know
And
what
that
the
30%
product
number.
is.
Is applications built on this? Like, you mean you can just use it in different places? I think that's what that means. If you have 100 clients, why were we talking about, like, I don't know, all those other random things, like ways of establishing credibility early on, right? Like,
Yeah.
having 100 clients is a really strong, like, I care way more about that than I do that, like, ET wrote about you.
And also, like, so generally VC money or investor money is often rocket fuel.
Yeah.
And saying that, like, I have 100 plus clients with a strong database is like, yeah, you don't you don't need to prove more than that I need rocket fuel to go further.
Yeah. This company Humanly, which we've invested in from Thersmonos and was one of our early investments, just raised, I think, $7 million in a week. And he was just really clear, right? They've had two incredible quarters. And and he's proven the model where the time to closing a sale has dramatically shrunk as they've increased their volume of sales and they've increased the average order size. So it's like all of the metrics are moving in the direction you want to. So he just went out and raised, even though it's only been like 6 months or something since his last raise, he just went out and raised right now. He only gave himself a week. He was super clear with all the investors and saying, I'm only raising this money in a week, but we are here, right? It was like, are you in, are you out? Because he just know, right? Like it's that
Yeah.
confidence of saying, I'm at that compelling moment for this company where anyone wants to be part of this because this is the thing. This is where you are at the moment where the company's about to go like this. Do you want to be in that? And it feels to me when I see this slide, especially this line, that they are here. You know,
Yeah.
this line in conjunction with these lines makes me think that they are at the point of saying that this money you could really see a return on this
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
Um,
This is like a leap to the next level kind of company.
yeah,
Because, like, if they have the tech figured out, if they have some clients, which means that it is not prototype stage, it is actually market tested. And if I'm like correct in understanding that they are more of a B2B solution, then 100 B2B clients is crazy numbers.
yeah, yeah. You're exactly right. And then I want to understand much more is the trajectory on these 100 clients, right? Like,
Hmm.
what is your monthly recurring revenue or annual recurring revenue? How has that changed over time? What does the sales cycle look like, right? Like, how long is it taking you to close clients? Is that changing over time? Like, I have a lot more questions about the clients and this story than I do about anything we've seen so far. Like, if people are buying the tech, you don't need to spend so much time establishing for me at a very high level that the tech works.
Yeah,
Like,
because I feel like, oh, this is the like the first slide being this is the problem, second slide being this is the solution, what we have built, and then third being like we have implemented it in 100 plus situations for clients, and this is what it looks like. Then we
yeah.
don't need all of these. You know what? I suspect that because they have worked, this is an offshoot of, I think they have applied for grants before.
I think they started at one of the IITs.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it is like that's what I was thinking, that I think this is a very, we were incubated in a research institute kind of storytelling.
Mm,
But like now you are a company, like now you are a profitable company, or moving towards profitability company. So it is valuable to sort of position yourself and see yourself differently.
yeah, yeah.
Like, two clients, that's a very different story. And if you have 100 clients and you're a mature company, you have gone through multiple cycles. That line, I agree, like 100 plus clients is like, they should have put it way above.
Well, and I think even just to highlight, but even more so, I think what you were just saying, right? Which is that if you have 100 plus clients, you're telling a different story than this type of story this deck is telling. This deck is telling the story of someone who isn't at that place. And yeah, shall we? Oh, wow, we have 4 different
Finally,
product offerings. Who knew? Some of these are
again
so
with the
big.
logos.
Just put them all on one page.
Yeah,
Seriously, if you want to, there can be a page and you can say implementation partners, like research partners, and like you can do them all differently. Like
yeah.
Aditi, when I was at Aditi, we used to have a page like that, and we called out all of them by vertical. We were like agriculture clients, whatever else clients, and then I think vertically it was by the size of the business, and horizontally it was by right. You can put all the logos there.
It is like you have, and especially like here, it doesn't need to take attention away from the fact that you have four products. Like,
Yes.
how many hardware companies will have four product offerings?
Yeah. Yeah, I want to know the details about this, right? How many of these are implemented? How many are in the pipeline? What is the average revenue from them? What is like how much profit do we make from them? What are
I
the maintenance
suspect that
costs?
these are, if they are saying key implementation, and if the rest of the story is anything to go by, these are their big ones, and then there are like, 99 other small ones.
Yeah, right. And maybe they've sold a lot of these, like, I don't know, I'm assuming the smart reefers and the temperature control boxes are very cheap. And so maybe they've sold a lot of those and just like 1 or 2 of these. I still think it's worth telling, right? Even if you're
Yeah,
just saying there's one
yeah.
space cooling and you have hopes on 2 others, put them, right?
I would also imagine that like it is going to be really valuable to sort of map out. So I would actually because I can see that's next slide slightly. I didn't think that's a product slide. I would actually give, yeah, it isn't. I would actually give like a lot of space to each product and highlight the journey. Because again, this is a research company, right? Like they have developed their own product, they have multiple patents. So then, like, talking about where did the idea begin? How did you arrive here? What was the first product? When did you start selling the first product? What was the second product? When did you start developing that, selling that, and so on and so forth? And maybe, like, even highlight what is on the horizon. Because, like, a company that has developed like 8 patents and 4 products is not stopping there. It's
Yeah.
probably already, like, many things are in the pipeline. So it's more useful to sort of go in that direction.
I would choose something, some thread, and carry it through.
Hmm.
So I think the way they've set up, I would maybe think about the industry thread and just carry that through. So show this is the way the industry solves the solution today. This is the kind of part of the market that we think we can go after. These are the ways our product solutions are solving for that. And then I say, I have one slide which is showing like how this would apply to other industries that are not as much of a focus. I'm making some assumptions here that there's probably some growth that they've already achieved in one or two industries, and there's probably some growth that they still have on the table. But just something to tie the story a little bit more together. Like how much of the market is being addressable by the different products? How much of the market exists in different industries? Like help me fit all these pieces together.
Or another way to do it could also be you pick a product and you just talk about its impact. So it's like this was the thing that it replaced. So let's say smart storage. What did smart storage replace? What was the energy usage previously? What was the cost previously? What was the cost of replacement? And how much benefit, like, did it generate for the people who implemented it?
Yeah. Because then you could start off with a question like, what if cooling storage didn't have to be just done by the 0.1% who can afford it? And then it's
Hmm.
like, what would that world look like? And then it's like, you paint a picture of that world a little bit. So you're like, oh, reduced climate impact, increased profitability for those companies that have implemented it. Maybe like lower maintenance because needs because of all these factors. And then you'd be like, well, that world is here. And then you're like, we've implemented this in this place in this way. And then we
Yeah.
can come to being like, that's just one of the potential outcomes of this product that we have brought to market. This technology also can be used in blah 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 blah. And then we can kind of come to saying, okay, how does that technology work?
Which I will
Where,
100% want them to say, how does this technology work?
yeah. So we're explaining that 500 billion number, I guess.
Feel medium about this.
You know what's so interesting? I was mentioning just in passing, I have this good friend who's helping me redo my personal branding and website named Kit Culbert. If anyone else is looking for help with personal branding or their websites, he's a great guy. You should look him up. But he has a lot of experience in fishing because he spent his summers working on fishing boats in Alaska. And what we were talking about is that the solutions for cooling on the boats is really poor. So he was like, yeah, like even fishing boats in Alaska would love to have solutions like this because they basically have to take it to a processing boat, which is where it gets flash frozen and then blah blah. Right? But and I just feel like I don't know, like I don't know anything more from this slides that I could use to explain the product to him than I did when I told him about it in high level.
Yeah. I also think that, like, one very key thing that they should ask is, like, what is the takeaway from this slide?
Yeah.
So, like, what is the informational takeaway and what is the emotional takeaway? Emotional takeaway is maximum in the flavor of trust us, which is fine. But, like, again, I don't know how this fits in my life. Like, let's say that I am an architect or I'm an interior designer. This slide doesn't tell me how I could use it.
Yeah, I think that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to do a couple of things. I think it's trying to explain this number. It's trying to explain why it's 500 billion. So it's like, oh, because these four sectors are making up some unknown part of the 500 billion. And then it's like, also, in addition to these four sectors making up some part of it, there's these reasons why it's existent.
Yeah, but then I would 100% like actually size up the
That's what I was going after. Yeah. What is the impact of these different things, right? Help us understand why they matter. How big are they? What part of it is going to be architects? What part is defense? Is this, you know, is
Also,
something
like
really
I don't
long
think
sales cycle and something shorter?
they're also not all the same level. So contractors and architects, they are saying that it's easy to use, and defense and post harvest is more industries where it's implementable. So like defense and post harvest would be the buyers, while architects and contractors would be the implementers. And I don't
What
think
this
that like yeah,
what this actually needs to be doing is split into a couple of slides. So there's one feature slide, which is kind of showing us those features, and then, or maybe it's the same slide, but then we're also communicating how do those different features appeal to the different customers, and for which
yeah,
customers are which features particularly important. And then, I mean, that market tailwinds, I think we've talked about this, but I would have that much earlier to help us establish what is this, why does this problem exist, right? Why are we here? I think there's also some language that they may be expecting, which I don't fully know. But
yeah.
like something I've learned now that I'm in getting more outside of tech investing is that there's so much focus on your contribution margins and just like how much money are you making per product sold. And of course
Hmm.
that's a thing in tech, but it's not quite as much of a thing.
Yeah.
There's much more focus on the market size and how much of the market you've captured and like penetration there. It's just a different language. And so I suspect that there's similarly a different language.
Yeah.
On to the next.
Yes.
Oh, that's it. Or well, this and then that's it.
No more
My
logos
good lord, we have more logos. What are these logos? Oh, places they've worked
or studied
or studied.
because yeah, IIT, B, D, and EY is okay. Yeah, so it's for each person. I'm assuming we don't need more logos.
What am I taking away from this? I really don't know. I guess at this point I had just understood, okay, so there's all these, so you're explaining to me why this number is real. And then now you're telling me who you are. I guess I would expect to understand why you guys are the right team for this.
But it doesn't tell that because it doesn't tell why any of these people should be working in hardware, clean tech, or like, a thermal or energy related company. Like, doesn't like that is not established.
Yeah.
Like, all of these logos feel in some sense irrelevant.
Yeah, I think in this situation, I would more lean on the side of putting more people, right? Like who else have they worked with, maybe? I, right? I'm
Or
trying
who
to
are your
figure,
mentors or something. But like
yeah,
I would restructure this slide completely.
yeah. I think it kind of depends on what takeaway, yeah, and then you're ending. So you haven't never told me actually if this is a slide deck for raising money, I feel you
I
would have something about what you're going to use the money for or how much money you're raising or
How much money you're raising, what you're gonna use money for, what's your business projection?
yeah.
What is the revenue you're currently like? What do your books currently look like, and what will your books look like in future? Because again, if it is 100 plus clients, you have some money. You have made or like, you have ran some money, like some understanding of that. And 100%. Like this feels like, why is the team slide here? I need to still understand what are you asking from me, how much, and why should I give it to you? Because where are you going to use it? Like, what does the money do for you?
I think you're exactly right. And even if you do want to hide details until you have NDA signed or something, you can always put the charts in and just take the numbers off them, and that way you can see, you give a sense to the person without revealing kind of your exact financial situations.
Yeah. No, but I
Yeah.
think ask should be there, right? Like, are you looking for a big ticket? Are you looking for 10 small tickets? Right? Like,
Yeah.
are you looking for one institutional investor that's gonna invest 5 million? Are you looking for like 100 people?
Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah, or even and again, I'm just like I'm thinking about ways you can communicate that even if you don't want to say that. And
Hmm.
I think just having some more projections, right? Like what does 2026 look for you? The rest of 2025 look for you?
Hmm.
Like even just to fill out this deck, if you wanted to have it as an investor deck outside of your ass, I think having some future looking ideas is just useful. And I'm still trying to put my finger on why this slide is not feeling like, because I mean, often like team slides look like this, right? Fine, they maybe don't have logos, right? But you'll often just have everyone's names and pictures. So I'm trying to put my finger on what I feel like could be better about this. There's something about that's troubling me.
Because they haven't earned a connection yet.
Say more?
Normally, when you arrive at Team Slide, you have some emotional connection to the company already. Like you have some feelings about it. And the people slide either confirms or denies those feelings. Do I like the vibe of the people or do I not?
Yeah,
And
interesting.
right
Yeah,
now,
you
I
might be
just
right.
feel like here they haven't yet earned that connection. Like we like Soumya, and even we
Yeah,
have a very tough love approach to this deck.
yeah,
Like we are very warm, we really like her.
yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. This was probably the most intense one that we have done till now.
Yeah, because I think this has a lot of the pieces, but has them put together in a different way. And I guess then I think contextualizing is very hard for people. Like it's hard for all of us. We just assume context. We assume people understand what we're saying, and it's like hard to remember sometimes how much it depends on the context and how much we're not actually communicating and referencing subcontext.
Yeah. Yeah. But I hope that this would be helpful for Soumya and Pratik.
Yes, yeah. We wish them all the luck in their raise, and maybe something here was useful for them as they kind of take this deck out to further investors.
Yeah. Bye.